Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Your Legislators, a production of KRWG Broadcasting. Your Legislators is a public service program providing our viewing audience in southern New Mexico the opportunity to hear about important legislative issues directly from their elected representatives in Santa Fe. Here's your host, Sloan Patton.
Welcome to this edition of Your Legislators. It's our very first edition of 2013. I'm Sloan Patton, and I'm joined here in the studio by Mary Kay Papen. She's the senator from District 38. Mary Kay, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So now I hear that you are running for President Pro Tem.
Yes, I am.
What does that mean? What is Pro Tem?
Well, the Pro Tem is the officer of the Senate. The other positions that we have are caucus positions, like floor leader and caucus chair and whip from both sides. But the Pro Tem is the office, is the Pro Tem of the Senate. And so that's what I'm running for. And it's they'll be picking the Pro Tem and the Chief Clerk and the Sergeant of Arms. Those are all Senate positions. So I will be running for that. And as we speak, I do have the votes to be the Pro Tem, and it is my position that the people that are supporting me are going to stay supporting me. So I feel confident that I will get it, but should I not get it, of course I would support whoever was Pro Tem.
Yeah. Well, you're a Democrat. Was it hard to get support from Republicans for
As
the
a
Pro
matter
Tem?
of fact, it was not difficult. I have the pledge of all of the Republicans and Democrats to be able to have enough votes to make the position there. So I would hope that I would be a very moderate Pro Tem, that I would be looking at both sides, the Republican, Democrat side of the aisle, and having a unified Senate so that we can work together collaboratively and work with the governor and hope that we can collaborate with her on a lot of issues and that we can come together for the state of New Mexico.
Yeah. What are going to be your priorities this session?
Well, I'm going to be carrying a mental health bill. I've carried a lot of mental health bills, so I'm going to be doing that. Of course, I'm carrying the spaceport bill. And so I'm hoping that we will be able to, I pre-filed it yesterday, as did Representative Jim White, and he'll be carrying it on the House side. And so hopefully we will be able to have a compromise come out with the trial lawyers. I think everybody is looking at this as economic development for the state. Of course, we're looking at it for big economic development for the southern part of the state, but also for the entire state. If we can get more than Virgin Galactic, if we can get this bill passed, then we're looking at a lot more people who are in the space industry coming here and wanting to be at Spaceport.
Yeah. Informed consent seems to be the catchphrase with the spaceport. How important is it that we pass that, and what's the process behind it?
It's very important because Texas, Colorado, Florida, they have all passed very similar legislation, though it has some differences to it. So it's, it's a business decision. You're going to go where you have the best business opportunities. So it's people say, well, Virgin Galactic is not keeping their word. Well, they are keeping their word, and they are getting ready to start paying the lease, $1 million on the lease to do that. But they also have to be, we want other people to come, not just Virgin Galactic. And if other people are going to come, they're going to go where they have the best business deal. And so it really is about doing business where they feel that they have a good advantage in the business sector. So I'm hoping that this will pass easily, that we won't have too large of a fight, and that we can have some sort of movement between the parties so that we can have, and we may need to substitute the bill or rewrite the bill if we have some good amendments that are coming in that are accommodating what we need to do. So that's a big bill that I'll be carrying.
Yeah. Why is it so tough to pass it?
Well, because, you know, it's tort reform. And so tort reform, of course, we're talking about business. It does affect the trial lawyers. So, you know, you have to respect also where they're coming from. And
because they'd want to try the cases where if something were to happen, they would want.
I have a stepson that was a former stepson of mine. I still think of him as my stepson anyway. He's a trial attorney in Nashville, by the way.
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, you know, Mary Kay, they can still file even if you pass this bill. He said all you have to do is file and take your case and see if you can't win it. Mm-hmm. So he said it really, in his opinion, he said it wouldn't keep them from at least attempting to file suit and to bring a suit. But it does give some protection unless there's gross negligence. And I don't think anybody is looking at not filing suit and making restitution for gross negligence. I mean, I think that's a given. Yeah. And so it's about, I guess, determining what is gross negligence and was it gross negligence. And so, you know, I can see both sides, but it is something we need to pass. And it only applies to the 4 passengers. So it's if people talk about, well, what if the space shuttle falls down on my house? You can sue for that. Mm-hmm. Just like if American Airlines goes over and something flies out of their plane mm-hmm. and hits your house or your car or you can sue for that. Mm-hmm. So that's something that isn't even a part of this bill. It's only gross negligence of something happening when you're in that space capsule.
Yeah. With mental health, New Mexico's an interesting state for that issue, you know, particularly. What do you think the state needs to do? What do you hope to do?
Well, for one thing, you know, money doesn't solve everything. Everybody says, give us more money. We can improve education if you give us more money. You give us more money for this, give us more money for that. So, yes, and money does make a huge difference. It makes a huge difference. But in mental health, if we look at some of the other states, I have a grandson who has mental health problems, and he's in California because there's a better a situation for people with mental health out there. They have homes where people, not institutionalized, mm-hmm. They have homes where people can live, where they make sure they take their medication, that they are in programs for their mental health problems and this, and they're not homeless, they're not on the street, so they're trying to keep them stabilized, which is certainly a lot less expensive than a week or 2 weeks in the hospital, or even transporting them all the way to Las Vegas. That's an expensive process, mm-hmm. up and back to Las Vegas. And then when they get out and are stabilized, where do they go? What happens then? And so they can go into hopefully some programs here, day programs and stuff, but to also be able to have that living program is a good opportunity for people there. So I would hope, you know, in this state we've done carve in, carve out, carve in, carve out. And so it's carved in now. And so it will be under the Health and Human Services Department. And I'm hoping with the expansion of Medicaid, and the governor has just signed on to that expansion of Medicaid, I'm hoping with those dollars that we will be looking at being able to make more provisions for people with mental health problems. And I think we also have our returning soldiers from Afghanistan and overseas, who obviously many of them have health problems, mental health problems. I probably would have one myself if every corner I had to look around I was suspecting someone was going to murder me. So it's about taking also care of our veterans. They need the care as well as other citizens in the state. And the earlier we can catch a mental health problem, the better chance we have of getting a handle on it. Often it doesn't manifest itself till young adulthood. And so if we see any of those signs, I've also talked to the Secretary designee of the PED of Public Education about where do we start looking at children in the schools, whether it's eyesight, hearing, autism, whatever it is, where are we beginning to pick these things up early in a child's life that we might be able to get a handle on something much earlier than when it really is full-blown and manifests itself.
Mm-hmm. In New Mexico, do you think it's a problem of we don't have enough psychiatrists and psychologists, or is it people can't afford the care?
I think there's some of both. I think the majority of the psychiatrists are all in Santa Fe. I mean Albuquerque, excuse me, and we're lucky because we have a psychiatric nursing program here at New Mexico State, and that's very beneficial because those nurses, when they come out, are going to be able to even prescribe. And so hopefully, as we graduate more of those, they will be more willing to stay within this more rural, we're not exactly rural in Las Cruces, but we have rurals all surrounding us, so that we will be able to keep a lot of those psychiatric nurses there. So we don't have a lot of psychiatrists here. That is absolutely true. So hopefully maybe with the expansion of Medicaid there will be more dollars there as well. Maybe we will have some more psychiatrists moving in to the area at least. And so it's something that we all need to be looking at.
So 2013 is the 10th anniversary of the murder of Katie Sepich, which happened here in Las Cruces, and there's some legislation before the president that he can sign incentives for other states to do things like Katie's Law here in New Mexico. Can you tell us a little bit about Katie's Law? I know that you were involved a little with it back in the day.
I carried the original bill. The Sepich family came to me and asked me on the Senate side. John Heaton carried it on the House side, and they asked me if I would carry it on the Senate side, and I did, and asked Senator Asbell to co-sign on the legislation with me. And we had a tough time getting it through, but it's a good bill, and it has saved and convicted many people, but it has also gotten some people who had been convicted wrongly, and so that's been able to determine that. So it's to me it's a wonderful bill, and I talked to, as a matter of fact, Jan Sepich called me the other day because I had called her to congratulate her because this family has worked tirelessly, the entire family, and you know, what a legacy to leave for their daughter after having had such a horrible tragedy. And so they've worked tirelessly to make sure that at least other young women or men that are in this kind of a similar tragic situation, that those people will be brought to justice. So I think it's a wonderful law. Then Governor Martinez wanted to enhance the law to include more felonies in the law. And so Senator Asbell carried that bill. He asked me to co-sign on with him. And so together, and along with the governor, we were able to then to increase that to do those DNA swabs. And I was in NCSL, and what's her name? The one that was kidnapped, the young Mormon girl. I'm sorry, it's leaving me right now.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about, and she was kidnapped by the couple and kept forever.
Oh, Elizabeth Smart.
Elizabeth Smart.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Thank you.
No,
left my brain for a moment, and she was there at the meeting and spoke very eloquently about her trial and tribulation of having this happen to her, and is very supportive of the Katie's Law, and she's just a wonderful young woman, and seems to have come out of this. I think her faith and her family and all have been things that have helped her come out of this, and she's married now and seems to have a very normal and very beautiful life, but has also put her experience to work in helping other women.
Sure.
And men, other people, children, whatever.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I probably should have explained too, Katie's Law lets DNA evidence be presented to courts, and then you said that it's been expanded, or at least you hope that it gets expanded to include more felonies. There's a little bit of controversy over, you know, in some states they don't want it to go too far. Where do you think that line is where we shouldn't use DNA evidence in court anymore?
I think that's up to each individual state to look at what they think is right. And I think sometimes baby steps, because we started with a baby step with ours to see how it was going and how it was working. And I think once people see that it is working and that you're not infringing on people's civil rights to a large extent, but that where you're going with this, I think that states also will probably enhance it as it goes down. But I think even if we can get the baby steps done in a lot of states, I think it's very beneficial. So I think that will have to be up to them individually, and there are people who do fight doing this. But as I say, I think if you can get somebody off the streets because of this kind of behavior, or if you can free somebody who's in prison because they're wrongfully convicted. So I think there's advantages both ways.
Now, we've seen gun control become a big issue in the rest of the nation. How big do you see that becoming here in New Mexico in this next session?
Well, I know Representative Miguel Garcia has a bill. I haven't read the bill, so I don't know what his bill really is going to do. You know, I think we do have the right to have guns. I think it's Second Amendment right that we do have that right. I think we have to use that right judiciously and carefully, and so I think it's something that. What kind of gun control are we talking about? I'm not a big proponent of the AK-47 type things. Certainly not for hunting. I've been a hunter most of my life, not any longer, but I hunted for years. And so I think that I think we do have a right to defend our home and our property and our being and our family's being. So I would hope that whatever we're looking at, that we would look at very carefully. And with the recent tragedy in Newtown and the one at the movie theater, etc., I would hope that we're not acting on emotion with doing what we're doing, but that we look at something very carefully and make sure that what we're doing is the right thing and that we're not just operating from emotion.
You've been a senator since 2001, and so what's it like when you see all the new faces come in? Is there anybody?
I think it's exciting.
Yeah.
I think it's exciting. You know, of course, you're disappointed. I cried for 2 days over Senator Jennings because I thought he had such a love for the state of New Mexico and for the state Senate, and he was good. He was very good at it. And but you know, we move forward. And so I think that we have a lot of really new, exciting faces. I'm excited that Joseph Cervantes, for instance, decided to leave the House and come on over to the Senate.
Right.
I'm very excited about that. And so I think and we have 2 new senators also from Las Cruces, and I think that's exciting. And so I think it's about keeping the ball rolling as we go along. And you know, we're not all there forever either. For whatever reason, we're not all there forever. So I think it's exciting to be bringing new people in and having them have that experience, because I think it's an education that I have gotten that I wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. It's just because there's so many things that you learn about. There are so many personalities, all the different things. So I'm very excited.
Yeah. Is there anybody that you're hoping to mentor that's coming in?
That I'm hoping to mentor? Well, of course, Joseph was Frank's godson, so I'm his surrogate godmother. So, but I don't know that he needs a lot of mentoring because he has been in the House for a long time. But I'm hoping to mentor anybody that would like me to mentor them. When the last session, when the new ones came in, I was assigned to mentor Senator Keller. And so I think it's, I don't think he picked me, I didn't pick him, they just said you will, you know, mentor Senator Keller, which I think is a good thing, to try and do anything that you can to help people realize what the process is and how it moves along. And so I'm happy to mentor anybody that would like me to, or however that even gets assigned out. I think it's important. Nobody mentored me particularly when I first came in, and I would have probably liked that to know a little bit more what to expect. And I do remember the first day I was on the floor of the Senate, I was sitting there and I brought the newspaper in, and I was sitting there looking at the newspaper, and different party, Republican, Lee Rawson came over and he said, "Senator, do not read the newspaper on the floor of the Senate. That is not acceptable." And I appreciated that, because I thought otherwise I'm sitting there in front of the cameras and everybody reading the newspaper while we're waiting to start, you know. And so I think it's those kind of things that people sort of give you that leg up and take you by the hand and show you the ropes. It's important.
Now, a whole lot of those bills expired January 1st. Are there any that you're anxious to reintroduce in the next session?
Well, of course, the spaceport bill.
Right.
I really want to make sure that that goes. I think there's a lot of things that we're going to need to be looking at. Of course, I've been sitting on Senate Finance and looking at the finances of the state of New Mexico while we have reserves. Mm-hmm. You know, we just have had Texas file suit against us on water. Mm-hmm. And
how do you think we're going to deal with that?
Well, it's going to the Supreme Court, so I'm hoping that we're going to look at it. I know that Elephant Butte and the different parties had made an agreement with Texas, and then our Attorney General came in to look at that, and so Texas then has felt very threatened. But you know, we're in a drought, and I think we need to be very careful what we do. We can't afford to really lose the water. We lose so much water by evaporation to start with before we ever deliver, and Texas doesn't have to help pay for the evaporation, we do, so we have to deliver so much wet water to them. So you know, our agriculture industry here is, I think it's like $10 billion with a B, billion dollars. Mm-hmm. And so we're in a drought. They're already going to be hurting with a lot of things, and so if where this goes, I don't know, but should it be an adverse for us, it could really affect our agricultural industry across the whole state. But I mean, this is in the Rio Grande Valley is where it would hit. But then are they going to move over to the Pecos with the same kind of a suit? You know, where will this thing go? So I think we have to be very careful with this and looking at what we're doing, and we have to know that we have to protect our agricultural industry.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that we have a reserve in the budget. Does that mean that we're good for 2013?
Well, I think we're going to be okay for 2013. We're going to have some extra dollars. I think it's $200 and some odd million that we're going to have, and we're going to have like capital outlay that we'll have some capital outlay that will be divided 3 ways: the governor, the Senate, and the House, and then a big chunk of it will go to statewide projects. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to be careful. In our permanent fund, we have some very healthy reserves there, but we also have to be looking at what do we have to hold those reserves for. There's a lot of people who want to get into those reserves and say, well, we need those reserves.
Sure.
Well, everybody wants in the reserves, not just one entity wants into the reserves. So then if we take our reserves way down, and then we end up having a bad hit, with the water or whatever we have, or the cliff, you know, mm-hmm. nationally, because we're getting less money from the federal government too. So we're having to make up for a lot of those holes that are coming down from the federal government. So I think we need to be very careful. I think I liken it unto a household budget. You know, if you've got some savings in the bank, hang on to them, and we've got to be very careful and husband those dollars very carefully. And so I think it's a problem, and it's also a problem sitting on legislative finance and Senate finance as people come in and say, but we only want X number, which takes the reserves way down. And so it's something that we have to look at very carefully and make sure that whatever we do, that we're being very careful with our money, and that we're not going over the same cliff. We have to balance our budget by the Constitution. So whoever's governor, whoever's in the legislature, we do constitutionally have to have a balanced budget.
By the state constitution.
Yeah, so we have to be very careful with that, and we have to be very careful with our dollars.
Yeah. Now I know it's still early, but do you see any certain groups getting bigger chunks of some of the reserves than others?
Well, I know that we're putting some extra money into maintenance for the highways. And it's not necessarily reserves, but just going into the budget. You know, we raised public employees. It's not a lot, but it's 1%. At least it's a raise in their salary. I mean, it's not a lot of raise, but it is a raise. And we raised the state police, and we raised the motor trans, you know, above the 1%. But you know, we have solvency of all of the retirement funds in the state to try and make them solvent way out. And so they're in a lot of trouble in trying for us to see where we're going to go to make sure that these retirement funds are there, like Social Security, trying to make sure that they're there for the 50 years out and doing that. So we have a lot of places that we're really needing to look at, and of course now with the governor coming on board with deciding to go with the raise in Medicaid, that's helped tremendously, where we're not having to look to put as much money. We're going to have to put a lot of money there, but also with doing that, that's sort of a you know, in the beginning, they're going to put in more money and we're going to put in less, and then it reverses. As they start putting in less, we have to put in more.
It changes, yeah.
Yeah, it changes, so that balance reverses, and so reverse gears, so to speak. So we're going to have to be very careful and watchful. So it's not that we don't have reserves, we do. But where are those reserves going to be needed? Not today, but tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of those tomorrows ahead.
Yes.
Mary Kay Papen joining us here. Thanks so much for taking your time. We look forward to seeing what's going to happen in this session.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.